All right, let's get right into it. We are looking at a huge strategic move from Anthropic, and it all boils down to one simple, but let's be honest, really tough question.
For years, this question has been the single biggest roadblock for AI in big companies. It's the one thing that sent security, legal, and compliance teams into a complete tailspin.
I mean, just think about it for a second. If you're in finance, or healthcare, or working for the government, are you really going to send your most sensitive data to some third-party server? No way! It's a total non-starter. And this isn't just a "we'd prefer not to" kind of thing. We're talking hard, legal requirements, things like GDPR, FedRAMP, and ITAR. This is that giant compliance wall that innovation just slams into and stops dead.
And this quote just nails it. It perfectly captures the genius of what Anthropic has done here. They figured out that the best way to win the argument was to just make the argument disappear. They didn't come up with a better answer to the question. No, they just removed the question from the conversation entirely. A total game changer.
So, what was the core problem here? What were they really trying to fix? Well, it all boils down to two things: data flow and trust.
Okay, take a look at this. It's super simple, but tells the whole story. On the left, you've got the old way, the standard model. Your data has to go from your system all the way over to Anthropic's servers, get processed, and then come all the way back. That trip, that's the deal killer. But now, look at the right. With this new Cowork on 3P, the data never leaves your own cloud. We're talking your AWS, your Google Cloud. The model comes to you. It runs right where your data already is, safely inside your own security walls. So, how in the world did they actually pull this off? Because, let's be clear, this is not some small API tweak. This is a fundamental change in the architecture. It completely redefines who's holding the keys.
All right, so here's the official breakdown. Cowork on 3P is what they call a deployment mode. Think of it this way: Anthropic gives you a license for the model, and it runs on top of the cloud stuff you already use, like AWS Bedrock or Google Vertex AI. But, and this is a critical part, Anthropic doesn't actually run the model. They don't do the inference. What does that mean for you? It means your prompts, your documents, everything you talk about, none of it ever touches Anthropic servers. Your own cloud provider handles the whole shebang right there in your environment.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how many of these core pieces shift from Anthropic's control to your control. It's not just about where the model runs. Check it out. User identity, that's now local on your device. Your conversation history, it's saved right on your own computer's disk. And all the configuration, that's handled by your own internal tools, like Jamf for Intune. This is a complete handoff of the entire runtime environment. And, the fact that it's built for these big MDM rollouts tells you exactly who they're targeting. This is for big enterprise, not your corner store's small business.
Okay, so a change this massive obviously has some huge upsides. But, like with anything, there are trade-offs. And you definitely need to know what you're giving up. So the first thing you're going to notice is what's not there. You still get those super powerful Cowork and code tabs, the ones for doing heavy lifting, like analyzing big documents or cranking out code. But the standard chat tab, it's gone. And that's a really important distinction to make. This setup, Cowork on 3P, is built for deep, secure, complex work. It's not for just, simple back-and-forth chatting. And it makes sense, right? Other things that need a central server, like sharing projects or using it on your phone, they're not here either.
All right, for all the security folks watching, this one's for you. Pay close attention. Even when you lock this thing down as tight as you can, there's one connection back to Anthropic that you can't turn off. It's to downloads.claude.ai. Why? Well, the app needs it to grab the virtual machine workspace every time you start it up. If you block that, it just won't work. But, and this is a big but, your team gets to turn off everything else. Crash reports, analytics, auto updates, you can shut it all down. And that kind of transparency is exactly what you need to build trust.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute. The key takeaway here is that this move is about so much more than just ticking a compliance box. This is a high-stakes strategic gamble by Anthropic. It has massive potential upsides, but also some pretty serious risks.
The advantages for Anthropic are just huge. First, boom, they get access to all those big-money enterprise clients that were locked away before. Second, and this part is just brilliant, they get to sidestep those ridiculously long procurement processes. How? By plugging right into the cloud agreements companies already have. The billing is just token-based, right on your existing AWS or GCP bill. It's genius. Third, they push the single most expensive part of this whole operation, running the GPUs for inference, onto the customer's cloud provider. And finally, they can grow their user base like crazy without ever having to build another data center.
And this quote from Ariel Cohen, their VP of product, just hits the nail on the head. The real magic here isn't the tech itself, it's the business move. It's about tapping into trust and contracts that are already in place. I mean, these big companies have massive, multi-million-dollar agreements with AWS and Google already. Anthropic just gets to slide right in, piggybacking on that trust. A sales cycle that used to take a year, now it could take just a few weeks. It's incredible.
But all of these advantages come at a cost, a pretty steep one. For starters, Anthropic is basically flying blind now. They have no idea how their models are actually being used or where they're failing out in the wild. Second, they're giving up some control over pricing because now there's a big cloud provider sitting right in the middle. Third, and this is probably the scariest one, they are handing over their distribution and the keys to the customer relationship to their biggest competitors. AWS and Google, the same companies building their own models to compete with Claude. And finally, there's this Azure Foundry gap. The whole data guarantee thing isn't ready for Azure yet, and that means a huge chunk of the European market is just waiting.
So when you put all the pieces together, the good and the bad, this entire really brilliant strategy, it all comes down to one single massive bet. A bet on the future of AI. And here it is. The whole thing hangs on this one question. If, and it's a big if Anthropic's models stay the absolute best in class, then this move is a stroke of genius, an absolute masterstroke. But what happens if AI models become a commodity? Where good enough is all that matters. Well, if that happens, Anthropic just gave away their distribution, their pricing power, and their customers to their biggest competitors. It's a huge risk and one they can't totally control. Their only path forward is to simply be the best. So I'll leave you with this. In a world where AI is getting better every single day, is just having the best model enough to win?